Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Steves. Hope y'all are doing well. We are here to discuss complicated health topics in a way you can understand to encourage and empower you to have abundant health. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of how the immune system functions in the body to fight viruses. I have with me Steve Steves, who is the owner and founder of Nutrition and Health Center. He is a certified clinical nutritionist and a naturopath. And we are both working with and representing, of course, Nutrition and Health Center, Steve's Health International, and we work closely with Perk Integrative Health, who is run by Dr. Russell Jaffe. So, Steve, thank you for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Great topic today. Of course, one of great concern in the community.
Yeah, definitely. All the scare about the virus stuff going around. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what is the immune system? What is a virus? I kind of like, how does that work? What is a viral infection and all of that?
Well, first off, I would like to say that Leviticus 11 tells us a historical overview of blood within the body and that it contains life. The whole life of the body is the blood. It's not in the blood. It is the blood collectively. And so we're going to talk about some of the simple things, but yet amazing, complex depth of the body and its creation and just what's in the blood. So what we can grasp today and what we can share will certainly touch the hearts of people when they see the vastness of what's within them is as vast as the stars in heaven when they look at the quantities that are right before their eyes. Specifically, the red blood cell production in the body on a daily basis, your body produces between 20 and 30 trillion red blood cells. If you break that down into seconds, every second you're producing 2.4 million red blood cells. Red blood cells carry oxygen. They also have a huge impact on what's happening in the rest of the body, not just with the oxygen, but every red blood cell has 270 million hemoglobin where the oxygen is contained. So, all right, think of that for a minute. There's trillions of red blood cells. Within each cell, produce 240 million every second. Within each one is another 270 million hemoglobin. So the red blood cells play their part. They deliver the goods, the nutrition to other tissue cells, but in themselves, they're not alive. As we are alive, they're just carrying nutrients. It's kind of like if you look at a train car, you've got your locomotive, and then you've got the cars that are being pulled behind it. What's the difference? Well, one contains substance and is just being pulled along the tracks. Another one consumes energy. So that's what I want to talk about is these energy-consuming cells, the white blood cells, that literally every time I mention a white blood cell, it is almost like chill bumps go through me thinking about the defense system that we have. Of course, the military that we have, if you kind of compare it, all the different aspects we have of our body's immune system really reflect similarly what we have in an Army and Navy and Air Force, the Marines, Special Forces, the CIA, and all of that combined together. When you look at this network, how it's such a perfect web to protect us, kind of like our U.S. military has done such a great job worldwide, kind of watching over terrorists and evil things that want to steal, kill, and destroy. Just like viruses are, they want to steal, kill, and destroy, just like bacteria. So we want to do what we can in our prevention measures, but we're not going to talk about that specifically today. We just want to talk briefly about the vastness of the immune system. And I know, Jason, the company you work with does immune testing, lymphocyte testing specifically, and lymphocytes are these master cells that consume a lot of energy and they're very sensitive to the energy that they're being given. Of course, it needs to be specific, but also the fact that they can be contaminated. They can, obviously, like anything, you can put sugar in a gas tank and a car won't run real well. If you don't put the right kind of nutrients in the body, then lymphocytes literally don't run well. The ELISA test, as we've shared previously, will identify some of the dysfunction that's going on within your body so you can understand what in the environment is influencing you even more, because it's all about the ability of the body in host defense. We could get off every time we talk, Jason. Don't we often get into the discussion of Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp and the opposing viewpoints like you see today? Some people believe that medicine needs to take over and stimulate the body, but the body is its host cell, or stimulate the body in order to fight. The body is its own host, capable of doing what it needs to do. It doesn't need any outside help other than what we're supposed to obey through Scripture, the things that we're supposed to eat, like God giving the Mediterranean diet, so forth. Mediterranean diet has over 6,000 PubMed studies that give us solid evidence that it is a diet, first of all, that God gave to the Israelites, and one that has more immune enhancement and disease reversing capacity and disease prevention ability of any other diet that's been studied. More studies have been done with the Mediterranean diet than any other. So, that's one of the things we offer in the Trinity diet is it's kind of a modified Mediterranean that's specific for biochemistry because of the uniqueness of how different we are today. We're influenced by our environment, and that's why ELISA tests are so beneficial, because first of all, we need to identify what we should or shouldn't be eating, and then with it, things that we're putting on our body, chemicals that react and get in our chemistry. Let's take that and then go in a little bit of discussion of the invasion, the process. When the virus comes in or when the bacteria comes in, it's coming in contact with specifically our epithelial cells, the cells that are exposed to the outside world. These cells within the mucus lining of our nose and our throat and our mouth, in our lungs, in the digestive tract, even on the surface of our skin. And we have these antibodies that are there watching. We have protector cells within the white cells, lymphocytes, that circulate in and out of those tissues, and they're constantly monitoring. Typically, though, most of what we see, 2/3 of our immune system is defended at that level, what we call that, just that innate immunity, that pre-designed attack mode where it finds something, kills it right at the surface. But there's also some unique things that are capable of happening within the mucosal lining of the digestive tract and in the what they call Peyer's patches that actually will move to create more of a chemical compound to find and destroy, to make up camp and destroy invading organisms or invading destructive things, for example, in food, like we evaluate, for example, in the ELISA test. So these lymph nodules that are contained along the digestive tract and even in the alveolar cells of the lungs, they have their own little fighters in there, little macrophages called alveolar macrophages. And those cells are capable of removing waste, removing debris, attacking it, engulfing it, destroying it. But sometimes a virus gets by. The thing about a virus is it's extremely small. A white blood cell, these lymphocytes that can find and kill cells that have been infected by viruses, a white blood cell is approximately 127 times larger than an average virus in its size. So bacteria can be much larger, but they're not as sneaky and not as, they don't hide as well as viruses do. And so they can be easily found and engulfed. In fact, a neutrophil can kill 52 bacteria in its lifetime, which its lifetime is short. It lives about 4 hours. And then we got to fuel it. We got to make sure our bone marrow is putting out, like we said, 2.4 million white blood cells every second. We got to keep it fed so that's doing the job. I'm sorry, that's not 2.4 white, that's red cells. 115,000 white blood cells per second. I get excited about the numbers, but I don't want to confuse the red with the white. So that's a lot of white blood cells being produced. They're specialized. They're going to go and do the work that they're supposed to. Some are matured in the thymus gland called T cells. Others are known as B cells. But they all work in this communication network, and I thought we could show a little picture here. I want to share my screen on what a cell looks like that as a presenting or signaling cell, or an antigen presenting cell, they call it. So it's actually got surface protein molecules that actually talk to the rest of the body in order to get responders to come and attack and destroy. So let me share my screen with you here, and I'll show you the specific slides regarding these photon microscope images, because they're very small molecules, so obviously you have a pretty powerful microscope. So here's a photon image of an antigen presenting cell. It's a type of T cell that's going to signal for others to come. There actually is a release of different cytokine molecules, and other helper cells come along and start to attach to the infected cell wherever the virus is hiding. And so on the surface of the cell, a cell that's been identified, which is represented in this particular picture of this orange mass here. It's an existing cell within your body, but inside is where viruses are hiding. But they have been found through these specialized intelligence killers here called natural killer cells, good name for them. But you can see the little probe coming from the orange molecule here, the orange being the natural killer cell, and the probe will actually pierce the membrane of the infected cell and inject within it cytotoxic chemicals that are produced within this living organism. So this white blood cell needs our fuel, needs our nutrients, as we talked about in other presentations, of needing vitamin A, needing vitamin D, needing zinc, needing vitamin C, all of these working synergistically to fuel these specialized cells, to help their membrane, to help their communication. And so it's quite remarkable on how they work. I think I'll get brave one day and show a metabolic pathways chart. We can't even show the whole thing on a screen, but of just what man can comprehend of what the body's capable of doing and how fearfully and wonderfully made it is. But this is pretty fascinating. So once this cell has been injected and it then disintegrates, it breaks down, and then the waste material is removed out of the body. Additionally, those natural killer cells, which look a little bit different in this picture, you see them as these white masses. There's approximately 9 of them that are visible in this electron microscope image, and they're attached to a malignant mass. So they have the ability to also find and remove cancerous cells. But there are many things that just interfere with these white blood cells. That's what we're designed to do. That's what's important. When you want to find out how your body really works, how it functions, and why it may not be functioning well, we don't need to know if we have a virus. Well, chances are most of us do have some type of exposure to these different levels of viruses, and they have the ability to mutate. They change their structure, and so your immune system is constantly changing its fighting mechanisms to seek them out and find them. It's smarter than what they are, but they're continually hiding, and a lot of times they live the whole life of your body. Those viruses may never leave the body because the immune system is always at some type of suppressed environment, whether it's the electromagnetic fields that you're subject to, or whether it's the toxins in your food, or the lack of sleep, whatever. We're in this fallen world, and we are going to be infected. We're all infected. In fact, Dr. Jaffe, brilliant immunologist, who is actually the formulator of ELISA testing, immunology testing that we do, and the PERT product line, as a result, the PERT product line came after his testing because he wanted to put together nutrients that are actually capable of supporting what he saw in biochemistry dysfunctions and immune dysfunctions. So my hat's off to Dr. Jaffe, and one of his reports shared specifically that through our nose and mouth, every day, the average American consumes between 100,000 and 10 million pathogens. Well, let's go back and do the math on the daily amount of white blood cells that are produced. It's a certain billion. 40 billion are circulating in the body at any one time. And if you only get in 10 million pathogens each day, that's just no match for an immune system that is much bigger in number, much bigger in number by thousands of percents. And their effectiveness and ability to destroy something that's 127 times smaller than they are just really gives credit to the Creator who made us fearfully and wonderfully and knew that these things would come along and that we shouldn't be afraid, that we are able to overcome. And that life that he called us to live is really explicitly detailed in a biblical worldview. And we just look at it between the pages of Scripture and study it and learn it and know it. And it becomes a freeing lifestyle that becomes your medicine. As Hippocrates say, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. I just really love sharing this stuff.
Thank you for sharing your slides. That's really neat images there that we could take a look at. So we got a little bit of an idea of what the immune system is and how viruses work in it. If you could, one of the questions I had is, does your body actually get rid of viruses? Like when someone is sick, if they get a virus, like what happens? Like, does their body get rid of it, or how does that work?
I briefly touched on that earlier, but that's a good point to bring out. I know we talked about how important that was, because viruses, and they were able to discover the coronavirus in 1960, or was it 63? I'm thinking also that's a time when they also discovered zinc. There was a lot of scientific breakthroughs, and now they see the impact on zinc with that. We have a video on that. But specifically, when a virus, let's say the herpes virus, you get that through chicken pox as a child. You either got vaccinated and you were given the virus, or you got it from your parents. Most of the time it's handed down. It's been so many years through the mammalian blood of ancestry, we get these viruses in our body. So the herpes virus in an individual like myself, I have a certain genetic weaknesses, or like Paul said in the Scripture, thorns in the flesh. And so I know what those are. I've learned a lot of those, but I'm susceptible to, when I don't get enough rest, if I don't get enough lysine in my diet, if I don't do herb immune support, I'll either manifest a mouth sore, a fever blister. That's usually what happens, is from the herpes virus. So I manifested in that way. It may mutate later in life into a different form of the herpes virus and then become a different strain, which they number them with different H's and N's based on the little protein receptors that are on the surface of the cell and how they identify that particular virus. But it's always making a change, so they give it different numbers by the way it shows its manifestation. But the herpes virus then could later manifest as the shingles. It could manifest on genital organs in different ways. But it was at once manifest as chickenpox when we were a young child. And that may have something to do with the developing thymus in the young ages. One of the clients who was in the other day, I think I shared this, she said, yeah, when our kids were young, and she was a young mother 50 years ago, and she said, we used to have chickenpox parties, and everybody would get together, and we would, if one child got chickenpox on the street or within the families, we'd all get together just so everybody could get the exposure. That way they would get it and get through it, and we could all work through it together. I thought, wow, what a confidence. There's just a different level of confidence in that day that these people have. And some have more, like our family, we have that confidence. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid about coronavirus personally because my immune system is very capable of taking it out. So
it sounds like it isn't necessarily that our body gets rid of viruses. There's like, I guess you could say our body adapts in a way. Is that kind of what
exactly? It adapts, yeah. and only in states when we get weakened. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a death in the family. Maybe there's some type of a trauma, a car accident. Those kind of things, along with nutrient deficiency, along with toxicity. We kind of measure these factors that affect us and put us in disease state. Remember the 3 T's: trauma, toxicity, and insufficiency. Oh, that's an I. Sorry, that's TTI. I was thinking of another acronym.
So, one question I have, so viruses, that's a big concern. Sometimes a concern is bacteria isn't necessarily what people are thinking about right now, but what's the difference between a virus and, a bacteria?
So good point. I actually have a picture that I want to share on the screen here of a bacteria that is on some surface cell tissue. I'll make it a little bit bigger so it can be easily seen here. And so this white blood cell that I'm going to show you is actually looking for a bacteria. It senses it in the tissue. And a pseudopod. So here's a white blood cell, this electron microscope image again, showing the massiveness of this cell. It just looks like this flowing blob of white mucus. And it has this long arm called a pseudopod. This is a neutrophil. The pseudopod is searching for and looking at, see it, can you see this at the bottom of the screen, this little yellow bacteria that's embedded in the tissue being this red orange material? Do you see that okay? Okay.
Yes, I can see that.
All right. So once this pseudopod, and it's able to, through a sensory network of signaling, know the bacteria is here, and you can see the size of the white blood cell compared to this bacteria size, it's no match for it. Once that pseudopod gets a hold of it, engulfs it, brings it into the cell through phagocytosis, it'll dissolve it and excrete it out of the body. That's a miracle of bacteria fighting.
That's great. So bacteria are different than viruses, but it seems like the immune system handles them similarly.
Well, there is similarity, but the unique difference is the white blood cells that kill bacteria are more short-lived cells. Lymphocytes definitely stick around longer through their communication network and their killing ability. They're aggressive and they just keep on going. But once these bacteria have been engulfed and broken down within the white blood cell, then the cell itself, the white cell, is disintegrated in approximately 4 to 8 hours. So then your body has to make more. Well, it's already been making more. Again, what did we say? How many billion per day? It's about 40 billion white blood cells produced. Oh, that's 40 billion in the body. I'm sorry. 115,000 per second. I wish I had. I'll put to memory these because they're just so fast. I just did all these calculations.
A lot of little cells.
Yeah. And so they're busy. They're doing their work, and it's constantly going on, and they're constantly making new cells.
Another question that I had, this is kind of the last question about like viruses that I had is how do viral infections differ from other illnesses? I actually just was listening to a doctor who was sharing about, he was an emergency care doctor, urgent care doctor in California, who shared on the news yesterday that one of the things that he was noticing is there's a lot of pressure for doctors to indicate the death of the person was the purpose of the death was coronavirus or COVID-19. But he said there are comorbidity factors involved, I guess, other illnesses. And so I thought that was very interesting, and maybe it would be helpful for people to hear from you. How are viral infections different from other illnesses, and how does that all work together and play a part together?
Well, when we were beginning this talk and we were preparing for this, I remember getting a recent email today, and Let's see, I don't have it readily available. Give me my glasses for a second. I want to show you 100 years ago this picture, the roads of life. Okay, almost every 100 years. So let me share my screen again real quick. And you'll see this image of people wearing masks. This was in 1919. And there was a poem that goes with it. But what I wanted to share about this was some of the outcome of that particular virus, or the Spanish flu virus, which is a certain strain of coronavirus too, I believe. It's respiratory driven, but mutated. These pictures up. I wasn't expected to go there, but glad we are. Well, they're not there. Well, I'll just tell this story. What came out of the study, they did a study on the Spanish flu and its history, and I can read it verbatim. So the Spanish flu of 1918 supposedly killed between 20 to 50 million people worldwide. And they went back in 2007 and did an analysis of medical journals from that period, looking at the pandemic. They found that the viral infection was no more aggressive than previous strains of the flu, but they give the credit to the deaths of malnourishment, overcrowding of medical camps, like overcrowding of hospitals, and hospitals as well, overcrowding, poor hygiene. And this was what promoted, according to the researchers, bacterial superinfection. They said that this superinfection killed most of the victims. Of course, they didn't give any numbers. They didn't speculate there, and said it was after typically a prolonged deathbed. I have some pictures of what the camps would look like. They're just in big tents, and all these people just on cots lined up one head of the other. And it was a miserable time. It was also during a time of the World War, and there was no communication. It was just a real dark and dreary time. And then without sanitation and without running water like we have today, there was a lot of disease as a result of not just a virus. Again, everybody's wanting to just put some kind of blame it on something, but it's a whole lifestyle picture. Why did so many millions live while 50 million died during that time? I hope that answers in a roundabout way your questions regarding.
Oh yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is even 100 years ago, it was understood that, when there were viruses going around, that wasn't necessarily the cause of all the deaths, that there were many other factors.
Right. And they didn't have the technology to identify what virus it was. Mm-hmm. There's influenza B. There's all different strains of viruses that we know of today. There's HIV virus. There's the Ebola virus. These are not new mammal viruses. They've been around probably since the existence of man, after the fall of man and the degeneration of society after the flood. So there's nothing new under the sun. We're still suffering from disease as a result of disobedience to God. That's what led me to where I'm at today, this passion I have to understand and research truth about how fearfully and wonderfully made we are. It's just every day I walk in that. And that's God's Spirit just refreshing me each day. You can't get tired of it after 30 years of studying, and well, it's 35 years of studying and digging in and just learning more about the body, and then relearning it because cells of the brain even degrade, and I have to re-energize those.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much for this. Everybody, this has been Steve Steeves. He is the owner, founder of Nutrition and Health Center. He is a clinical nutritionist and a naturopath. Encourage you guys to visit his clinic or his website. His website is nutritionandhealthcenter.com. So today we went over the topic of the immune system, how it functions in the body to fight viruses. We talked a little bit about how it differs from bacteria, what other factors are involved with death during times of pandemic, and what how our body responds. So we are here to discuss complicated health topics in a way you can understand, to encourage and empower you to have abundant health. We ask that you would come back and join us again for another discussion. We're hoping that we're going to continue this conversation, and please send us questions you have. You can send them to steveshealth at gmail.com, or you can send them to info@nutritionandhealthcenter.com. And we'd be love to answer any questions you might have. We're going to try to get on live on Facebook and YouTube as well. So we'll be sending out more information on that. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful, healthy day.
Thank you, Jason.
Bye-bye.